All right, thank you everybody, and welcome to our ordinary meeting of Council for the 24th of August 2022. Firstly, may I acknowledge the traditional owners of land we meet on today, and I humbly pay my respects to the people of the Wiradjuri and Ngunnawal nations, their past, future and emerging elders. If you are asked to evacuate, the emergency procedure is to exit via the door leading out of the building directly outside the council chambers and proceed to the footpath opposite the council chambers and await further instructions. And this council meeting is being streamed live, recorded and published in accordance with council's live streaming in council meeting policy. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice and comments being recorded and published. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image and comments will form part of the live stream and recording. The chair and or the general manager have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published, and attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behaviour and or comments. Before we go on, I apologise for my mask, but I do have a head cold, so hopefully I will not contaminate anybody else in this room. All right. Public forum. Today we have public forum, and we have in the Young Chambers, we have Iqbal to speak for the motion item 12.9 to 17, DA 2022/0054 vehicle sales premises. Thank you. Well.
I speak to you today regarding DA 2022/0052. Used car yard at lot 2208 Olympic Highway. Firstly, I trust that you are reviewing the latest plan submitted after last council meeting with additional works and notes listed and covered in detail by my development specialist, Mr. Filmer, in the attached letter to that plan. These are the last two attachments in the business paper before council, and additional comment does not appear to have been separately made in the report by staff. I've offered to grade and provide compacted road base to the display area along with landscaping, along with a guidance sign encouraging side access. I am not new to the industry. I have been a licensed motor dealer for about 18 years, only foregoing this with the sale of the business to move to Young about 10 months ago, and looking for another opportunity here, a business opportunity. The site was found and my low-key startup DA proposed due to the compliant zone, existing building and side street access, making it ideal for compliance with council policy. I'm a businessman. This can be a win-win situation. I'm offering a service to the locals and beyond. Development means purchase of materials, jobs for local businesses. I didn't come to Young to pursue an argument or a fight, rather to help and to serve the community. I hope we can move forward. Contrary to opinions expressed in debate at council's last meeting, I will not be washing cars at the site. The commercial car wash in town will be used on any new product, and then whilst on the lot, a wet chamois approach will be used. This is a common approach. Dealers, we are in the industry, we understand the industry. They use a chamois to wipe down the vehicles from time to time. You don't wash your car every day. It's not practical. We don't wash our cars every day. You don't wash your cars every day. It's not feasible. It's not good for the environment. We use, again, a chamois and a bucket to wipe down the vehicle from time to time. We have a local car wash in town we can support and wash the vehicles prior to them entering our premises. The adjacent intersection of Malvasinos Road and the highway is safe, and accepting an unrelated recent accident, we believe mobile phone related, has great safe intersection sight distance in both directions. We note that Traffic New South Wales and Council does not want parking on the highway frontage, but confirm this would be hard anyway. Why? Because we have almost every day decoupled B-double trailers parked in front of our site most days. Maybe there's one as we speak now. The zone is compliant for this business. We have adhered to Council's own policy. All the restrictions that were put in place, we didn't say no. We said we will obey by those. I continue by saying that someone from the industry with 18 years experience would know the industry. And in many locations across New South Wales, whether it be in Bathurst, whether it be in Campbelltown, in Liverpool, in Parramatta, even in the Sydney CBD, you will find dealers are located on gateway sites. You will find they are located on the highway. You will find that they attract people. That is where they should be. And that is where we want to be. We think it will work. And we are willing to deal with all the conditions that were set out. We didn't say no. We hope we can do business together, and we hope we can move forward. I'd like to end it before that 1 minute. I'd like to say thank you. And that's all for me.
Thank you. Me. Attendance, apologies and applications for leave. We have application for or absence from Alison Foreman and Councillor Piper and the report for Councillor Piper requesting an absence 24th of August for personal leave, and Alison Foreman, Councillor Alison Foreman, has just sent in a late apology for not being able to attend this meeting. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Dodd, and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Those, yes.
One apology, one leave.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Those in favour? Thank you. Next, we have sympathy expressions, and I ask this.
Sorry, we need to on the screen. The application to attend digital meetings with Councillor Mackie.
Oh, pardon me. We also have two applications to attend digital meetings, one from Councillor Mackie and one from Councillor Stadmiller. Move that way. Thank you, Councillor Ingram and Councillor Flannery. Those in favour? Thank you. Carry.
Yep.
Right. Moving on to 5, sympathy expressions. And I ask that the staff and members of the public be upstanding for a minute's silence to express our sympathy on the passing of the following. We have Neville Rhodes, Marion Moanui, Georgina Lincoln, Jean Grocott, Marjorie Fay, James DeBritt, Basil Close, Charles Whitechurch, Eric Hudson, Nolene Bowler, Maxwell Cook, June Muller and Rhoda Duffy. Thank you, everybody. Next, 6, confirmation of minutes for Hilltops Council Ordinary Meeting for the 27th of July 2022. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Flannery, and seconded, pardon me, Councillor Fitzgerald. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Next, we have, let me turn my pages. Any disclosure of interests?
Yes, there is. Councillor Armstrong declared a non-pecuniary interest in item 12.9-22/13-DA 2022-0054 vehicle sales premises at 4657 Olympic Highway, Young. Councillor Armstrong will make a declaration, stay in the chamber, participate in the debate, but leave the chamber for the vote. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Are there any others? No? That's fine. All right. If we move on to the mayoral reports, it is in front of you. There might be a couple more, but it has been a fairly busy month. Oh, pardon me. Before that, number 8, mayoral minute. And this is for the urban footpath construction program. And the purpose of this report is to request details of the urban footpath construction program be provided to council based on a request by the Assessment Management Working Group. And at the last meeting, it was requested that information be given to council, and I acceded to the request that it be put in a mayoral minute to be brought to this meeting. It's for an update on the urban footpath construction program, including the locations, and also a request on the process of determining how the budget is expended for footpaths and the criteria that was determined. In the responses, you'll see that there are 2 areas of revenue and grants. Additional works on footpaths undertaken on community requests, and most new footpaths are funded by non-revenue sources. I did notice that I think it was in the council newsletter that a grant has just been gained for 72,000 for footpaths, and I'm just wondering, Mr. General Manager, if we could just have a bit of an update on how that works into this urban footpath construction program.
I'll pass through to the Director of Planning, Jamie Duberg.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So this funding is to do a strategic assessment of our active transport networks in the area. And so what that involves is looking at strategically at the gaps in our network where walking and cycling happens. So the idea being is that you want to develop continuous walking networks and cycling networks that loop up, so then people are more likely to use those in an active capacity. And it would be the strategic overlay on which to inform future work on a PAM.
Thank you for that information. Any more questions?
Question in regard to the funding. Is it? Sorry, it's a question in regard to the funding. Is there any opportunity for the for part of that funding to be used for the preparation of the PAMP the council will need to prepare in the next 12 months?
Through Madam Mayor, no, the funding is specifically for a strategic study. So that's the criteria by which this grant will receive this grant.
The PAMP being the Pedestrian Access and Mobility Plan.
Yes, so that's a subordinate plan to the strategy that over.
Thank you. No,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll put to the vote. Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you, councillor. We'll move on now to my mayoral report. Mine is very thank you. And I did actually, the gentleman told me that I did actually attend the meeting.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, we can't hear you.
Maybe because I didn't turn my mic on. There you are. Is that better?
Yeah.
I did attend the meeting last night at Burua. That had to do with the movement of the Flyers Creek wind farm through. It was, I thought, a most successful meeting where it was explained very clearly about the movement of the equipment, and I think came to an acceptance of the route as it is planned. So it was either, Councillor Mackie, you might agree with me in saying that, but I thought it was a very successful meeting.
Madam Mayor, I would suggest it was the same, considering there were probably 50 plus people there with a lot of questions, but I think in the end, most people's fears were allayed, and I think now that with a little bit more communication, people were probably, at least 90% happy with what's going to happen.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. But I'll put that forward.
Couple of questions, Madam Mayor.
Yes, yes.
In your mayoral report, the first one, I noticed in the last few months, you've been leaving your mayoral blog off your diary. I would have presumed that would have been on there, being a council duty that you undertake. And the purpose of that blog was, when it was initiated, was to inform people on social media who may not be able to Zoom and watch the meeting live, and let them know of the major points that happened at the meetings. But I just happened to notice after a phone call, it tipped me off to have a look at the last month's blog, that the matter you spoke of in regard to the notice for motion 14.122/19 was probably not described as it happened in the chambers, that but come across on your blog as that the decision of councillors were voting for the second time against the demerger proposal. The notice for motion was actually to give our community a say, if they wanted to say whether council should stay or demerge. So I think if it's to be used to represent what happens at a council meeting, it is probably better that it's described as it happens. The second point on that one, what I mentioned, was the curious way of summing it up, of saying how the debate was civilised, as opposed to.
I think that was a compliment to us all, Councillor, in saying that it was a civilised debate.
I think we'd find line when we have to be applauded with the word civilised in our meetings. But anyway, thank you for that. Asked and answered. The second item that I'd mentioned on your calendar is the country mayors meeting that you attended. And I was just wondering if you could tell council how our council voted on item number 17 of the country mayors meeting.
Item number 17, which was, I think, at the last minute. And you're talking about
I'll help you out. The merger proposal of Koodagundagai Regional Council. They resolved that country mayors write a letter to the Boundaries Commission supporting their decision, which recommends the demerger of councils should proceed. And it was carried. I was just wondering how our council voted with that.
the way I voted was,
I'll just,
the
interrupt.
way the country mayor.
your vote is our council vote at Country Mayor's, Madam Mayor, yes.
And
How did our council vote?
I voted against it because I put it as what was carried by the motion before about not going forward with looking at a business case for it, and also.
But we weren't
the
talking
second
about this. I'm sorry to intervene, but this wasn't about our council. This was about a neighbouring council who have their community support this, their council support it, the Boundaries Commission support it, and we're waiting for the local minister in a couple of days to see what happens there. I just can't understand how, as a council, we should be being negative towards other councils and other communities' wishes. This wasn't about our council, this was about our neighbours. And I fully support them in their process. But I just wanted to know, and you've clarified it, you voted for Hilltops Council not to support Kooragundigal.
I voted
On that, yep. On that
for
item.
the country mayors. Well, yes,
Thank you.
for the principle behind it is what I
Asked and answered,
voted
thank you.
against. And I was not the only one that did, and I was not the only one.
You're the only one, Madam Mayor, that was there representing Hilltops Council. What other councils do, as I said before, and I've said publicly, isn't our concern. The question's been asked and answered. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you also for your comments, and also thank you for picking up that I didn't put in the mayoral blogs, and I certainly will in the future.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Now, do I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Dodd, and a seconder. Councillor Fitzgerald, thank you. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous, thank you. And we'll go to the councillor report and then read it for you. Do any councillors have something that they would like to add to their? Yes.
I went to the farewell for former Mayor John Walker.
Could I ask a question in regard to that? I noticed I was going to ask Councillor Foreman, but she's not present. It was noted in Councillor Foreman's Councillor dinner for ex-Councillor John Walker. I don't know what to think. Whether the invitation never arrived in my box, or was this a council function?
No, it wasn't a council function.
Then it's hardly worth reporting in council's duties. Or otherwise, I might as well tell you I went to the races in Maria the other day. That's up to you. Thank you.
It was up to council.
Thank you.
Kirsten to put it in, but it was a private dinner. Thank you. Anybody else that would like to put in something?
Just, Madam Mayor, just to add in the attending the Flyers Creek Wind Farm community meeting last night.
Thank you. All right. Nobody else?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councillor Dodd.
as Alison Foreman isn't here, but she also attended that Flyers Creek meeting last night, can that be added to hers, or can it only be added by her?
No, I'm sure we can add it. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. That's it. Round the table, I think I have asked if anybody else wanted to.
Normal process. We go around person by person. So.
All right, normal process. Let's follow normal process. And Councillor Flannery.
Two by constituent meetings and asset management meetings, and they're all very civil.
That's good to know. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. And
the
next.
meetings as listed, and I will not comment on their civility.
Councillor.
Meetings as minuted, and seeing it's the new go-to, I'm not going to list the number of constituents I met with, otherwise we'd have 2 or 3 more pages in the business paper, but if it's going to be the done thing, I'll mention as well. I also have another matter that I attended, and I attended a rally outside Parliament House in Sydney and was invited to speak at that rally. It was organised by residents for the amalgamation and Save Our Council. on the 8th to 9th of August, I believe it was, I was there. And there was the opposition member for local government, Greg Warren, spoke, Dr. Joe McWhirr spoke, and Robert Borzak also spoke, shooters, fishers and farmers, about how they think that councils that have the support of the community and the Boundaries Commission, et cetera, should be supported. I don't want to go on about it. I think everyone knows what it was about. I spoke about it. I spoke my opinions and my opinions only, and that's the only ones that I need to speak about. The commonality between the people and all the councillors that were there, and councillors and residents, similarities, it's all there. This, the exact same thing. Growing deficits, levels of service dropping, work's not being done. Disharmony in the communities, it's just repetitive. So, and as opposed to you, Madam Mayor, I wished the Gundagai people who were there at that rally all the very best, and I did mention to them that there's a chance they might get a more sympathetic hearing this time, given that the now Minister for Local Government was the former administrator of Hilltops Council, and knows only too well the problems and the issues, and the $17 million deficit the first year under administration, and those deficits have continued. So that might work in Kooragundigai's favour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Righto. Now, Councillor Stadmiller.
This meeting's as minuted, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Mackie, we had your comments before. Councillor Dodd. Thank you. And Councillor Armstrong.
Engagements as provided. I have missed one yesterday and the day before with a constituent in regard to their concerns in regard to the Bribri garbage tip and the potential for fires there. There's also a letter that I forwarded on from the Bribri Bushfire Brigade to the General Manager for his attention, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Hewson, you have anything more to add to what you had before? Okay, thank you. All right, that's it. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Sundry, and a seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you. Now, number 11, Community Recognition Scheme. Do we have anybody tonight? Councillor Stadmiller.
Very brief, but the Harden She-Devils rugby union side won their respective grand final on the weekend. They were formed 5 years ago. I don't believe they won a game in their first year, and within the space of 5 years, they've gone from not winning a game to taking out the title. So I'd like to congratulate them and get a community recognition scheme certificate forwarded to their co-coaches, Simon Glover and Harry Sachs, for their excellent achievement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm sure we'll have those details. Right, do we have a mover? Thank you. And Councillor Flannery, and a seconder? Councillor Ingram. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. All right, now we did have a couple of speakers, so I would like to move. If somebody moves that we actually move.
So,
Second.
So moved. Thanks. Councillor Armstrong and second Councillor Flannery. So if we bring forward, and the vote? Unanimous.
To move to item 12.9.
Yes, it's moved. Item 12.9, vehicle sales premises at 467 Olympic Highway, Young. We'd like to move those forward, and that is on page 96. I'd like to say the councillors, the recommendations before you, and we've had some robust discussion about this before, but however, would like to move? I'm going to move a motion to reject the recommendation. I move the motion that council refuse the DA application number DA 2022/0054 for a vehicle sales premises and signage at lot 2028 DP 721910 4657 Olympic Highway Young for the following reasons. The council's not satisfied that the variation to the Young Development Control Plan 2011 is justified by the application, and approval of the application would set an undesirable precedent for similar developments in the B6 Enterprise Corridor Zone and is therefore not in the public interest. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ingram. If I can speak to it, perhaps, first of all. The performance outcomes and acceptable solutions for car parking and vehicle access in the Development Control Plan states acceptable solution, APA 3.2, unless specified to a different standard elsewhere in this DCP. All car parking areas, driveways, turning areas and loading areas are paved in either a bitumen seal coat, asphaltic or bituminous concrete, cement concrete, concrete paving blocks or brick paving blocks. And while the update by the applicant from gravel to road base is noted, this change does nothing additional to practicably meet the performance outcomes in the DCP. And I do note that this is the first application in the B6 zone for a variation from this control in the DCP. And I'm concerned about the precedent set, that the precedent set should lower a standard that would be approved. Consideration of the long-term impact of setting this precedent is particularly pertinent, considering the Hilltops 2040 Local Strategic Planning Statement 2020-2040, which has identified this area as a future business gateway. And as such, I'm concerned that approving this application will create a new baseline for future applications, and this would make it more difficult for the council to achieve the strategic outcome for this area, to become a gateway for young. And I'm also not satisfied that the development would provide an attractive streetscape as required by the Young Development Control Plan, especially in the appearance of the development, whether it's appropriate to neighbouring buildings and the wider area. Director, would you like to expand on any of those points?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the situation we've got is we're in a transitional period where we have rules that go back to 2011 with our local environmental plan and strategic aspirations through Hilltops 2040 that are yet to be realised in an updated development control plan. So the report you have before you from officers looks particularly at the request for a variation to the off-street parking criteria and ways that the applicant has suggested to hit the performance outcome by essentially doing a series of initiatives, including limiting the number of vehicles on site, the type of vehicles on site, and the way the vehicles get there as a way to hit that performance outcome. And that is the reason why officers had put the recommendation to approve the application. There's that wider strategic consideration with regard to the future use of and development in that area, and the idea of that business gateway being developed as part of the local strategic planning statement that is definitely a factor to consider in your decision making.
Thank you, Director. Yes. Do I have anybody or a councillor who would like to talk against this motion? Or has a question that they might like to ask? Councillor Stadmiller.
Madam Mayor, I'm a little bit confused because I'm happy enough that you've moved a motion that basically won't allow this to occur, and I think you'll find support around the table for that to happen. But I'm a little bit puzzled by the recommendation that Council wants to grant consent regardless of the factor in between different planning instruments. I was also under the impression, and it's a question for the General Manager, that each development application should be studied on its merit and that precedents can't be set. So could I get an explanation regarding precedents, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So what we're talking about is the long-term strategic planning of this area. And so if the council were of a mind to approve this application, we essentially are setting a new threshold where we're saying in this area, a similar type of arrangement may be considered, and this would be used as a baseline, for those considerations. And yes, it's within their merit, but you do consider what's happening in the vicinity and the development that's taking place. So over time, you're going to have a cumulative effect of decisions being made. So you have this moment in time in which to set that direction.
Councillor Stadmiller. And then
furthermore to those comments, I'm confused then why Council's granting consent to the development application if what has just been said is true. Are other councillors confused, or am I missing something here? It's highly possible I'm missing something. Please interject if I am.
No, I don't have a question. We had a speaker before, Madam Mayor spoke for, and then with Councillor Stadmiller speaking against tonight. And I'd like to be the second speaker to speak for your motion, Madam Mayor.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Given that there was considerable response after our council meeting in regard to the process, I think it's probably better that we make sure we follow the process. So thank you for that. And I objected to this proposal at the last council meeting, and I object to it again at this council meeting. The main reason being safety. No matter the council is here to travel that road, when you're coming in that road and you want to go and turn down Malvasino Road, and you've got a B double coming in behind you, sometimes you're better off just going straight past and go up the road and turn around, and that's what some of the residents have to do consistently. Spoke to Joe Bakbana, Ian Butt, and a few others about it. And when you come in there, without a safety lane or a turn-off lane onto another sealed road that would have to be widened, it was, in my opinion, my humble opinion, begging to create traffic down there and have a fatality. And I'm not prepared to have that on my shoulders. So that's the reason I object to it. I just don't believe it was ever going to be covered for the safety issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham. Do we have another speaker against?
So I'll speak against. First of all, I'll ask a question in regard to the motion. If the proponent was to provide bituminous seal, whether that be asphaltic concrete or two-coat bitumen for Malvasino Road and for the hard stand areas within the proposed development, would that substantially change the nature of the development? That's the question. And secondly, the proponents indicated that he doesn't propose to wash motor cars there. Now, I know that was a significant concern for council at the last meeting, and I still have some concerns about a gravel road or an unsealed road and the amount of grit and the like that would present itself on the car. I guess I'm uncertain as to whether there's value in it being gravel or not, and as such, I'd like to flesh out the issue of sealing it, if we can, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. In our development control plan, we have a identified acceptable solution that is for the car parking to be sealed. So if it was sealed, then indeed that would be very much in keeping with the zoning and the development control plan.
Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Councillor?
yes.
So Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Mackie, pardon me.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I was just having a look here that it was supported by the TF New South Wales. And part of the attachment, it said the submitted documentation categorically states that no tow vehicles, no trucks or no rigids will be used for the premises. Vehicles available for sale are registered vehicles that can be driven to and from the site and don't require transportation via heavy vehicles. So I don't know whether that changes the notion of what Councillor Ingram suggested. That's a question.
Question, Director, are you able to?
Through you, Madam Mayor. That is really at the heart of the applicant's proposal, is that by limiting the use of the site and the type of vehicles there, they're able to achieve the performance outcome in the development control plan by another means other than sealing the car park. And Transport for New South Wales was satisfied that this approach would meet their requirements.
I wasn't talking about their trucks. I was talking about the trucks and the B-doubles and the trucks that go down that road now that live out there and past it and come past it. So,
Madam Mayor, point of order. I'll call point of order, and I'll ask that the move a motion that the motion be put now.
Yes.
The point of order being 10.25. We've had two speakers for and two speakers against.
Yes. All right. I will put it.
Just a moment. I'll let you.
Councillor Stadmiller appears to have a question.
Councillor Stadmiller, you have a question?
Now that Councillor Armstrong's called a point of order and asked that it be put, we're voting on whether it be put now or not. And he's now left the chamber for us to decide. So that's what we're doing. We're voting on whether it be put.
Yes, exactly that.
Thank you.
So I'll put the motion that it be put. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Councillor Mackie, are you for putting the motion or against putting the motion? We're not putting the motion now. We're not voting on the motion itself. We're voting to put the motion. It's a moot point because the hands in the chamber has voted for it, and it's not a recording. So we will now put the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. I think that was unanimous. Could we have a show of hands once again, just for the motion to be put? 1, 2, 3.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you. I will now put the motion. Those in favour?
As it's a development application, Councillor Ingram, Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Hewson, Councillor Stadmiller. Those against, Councillor Dodd and Councillor Mackie. The motion's passed.
Thank you, councillors.
I'll just retrieve Councillor Ingram.
All right, we'll just have a minute while Councillor Ingram is retrieved to the chamber. We'll return to the order.
Councillor Armstrong has returned at 5:18. Councillor Armstrong, for your information, the motion as put by Madam Mayor was passed.
All right, we're all back in the chamber. And if we go to 12.1, 2205, the Local Government New South Wales 2022 Annual Conference. The purpose is there to consider nomination of council attendees, voting delegates, and motions to be put forward. And that's the recommendation, that determine 3 delegates to represent council at the Local Government New South Wales 2022 Annual Conference with 2 voting rights, and consider motions to be put forward to the Local Government New South Wales 2022 Annual Conference. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconder, Councillor Flannery. Thank you.
Now we are to determine the 3 delegates to represent council, and then to consider any motions that might be put.
The 3 delegates, I'm right in thinking, Mr. General Manager, it's usually the Mayor, the General Manager and one other. And I know that one councillor has indicated his interest in going to the conference.
That is correct, Madam Mayor. My understanding is protocol has been the Mayor, one other councillor who's shown an interest, and that has been Councillor Fitzgerald has noted that without any preconceived motion or movement, his interest, and the General Manager attends. So invite any other councillor who might.
Are there any other councillors who are interested? I know in the past, as a councillor, I went to one of these meetings or the conferences. A number of our councillors have already gone to a conference, so I really commend the sharing, if you like, of the role and of learning how things operate. I think it's important that the General Manager goes, especially for the interaction that happens during those conferences. The motions to be put forward. Last time we actually put forward 2 motions. The date is coming very close to having those motions. Ideally, we might have had them tonight, but we do have time for any motions to be put forward to be presented at the conference. Yes, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Ingram, have you got a... Yes, I just said Councillor Ingram. Pardon me.
Madam Mayor, I do have a motion that I'd like to put forward.
Yes.
I'll just make sure I get the correct words for you here. The motion for the conference would be that Local Government New South Wales provide letters of support for all councils seeking to demerge, where such demerger proposal is recommended by the Local Government Boundaries Commission. And that action would be consistent with the motion passed at the Country Mayors Association meeting held on the 5th of August 2022. So if you need a motion that way, I'll move that way.
I think through you, Madam Mayor, Phil, there may be some discussion around what motions are put. Councillors may like to consider the attendees first and then consider the motions separately, so they're not related.
I'll move General Manager, the Mayor, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Councillor
So, seconder for that.
Seconder?
I'll second it, just some clarification. So we're only voting on A and not B.
That's
Yes,
correct.
A,
We're splitting it so
Yep.
we can debate any motions that are put up line by line. Thank you.
Happy to second point A.
I'm sorry. I thought the Mayor asked me if I had a motion.
Yeah.
I most probably did, and so I apologise for that, for not following due process.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just merely suggested, given my observation of the views around it, potentially not to couple it, but I'm in your hands.
And my view is being discounted by council.
No. I'm saying that separately to be debated if that's the view of the council.
We'll look at A and then we'll consider B.
When you asked me, I answered the question. I'm just flabbergasted.
Well,
we now have a mover and a seconder on point A.
Point A, those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous, thank you. Now if we move to point B, consider motions to be put forward to the Local Government New South Wales 2022 Annual Conference. And Councillor Armstrong?
I'll just put mine forward, Madam Mayor.
I'll second it.
Just councillors, while we wait, while the Minute Secretary types up the motion as proposed, and then we'll put it onto the screen for the councillors.
Thank you, Deirdre.
Can you share that screen?
All right, well, we'll put,
so for those councillors digitally attending, the motion as put by Councillor Armstrong and seconded by Councillor Flannery is before you. Councillor Armstrong, is that correct? Demote where such. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
well, now it's time for me to put that to the floor.
Well, is there any questions in relation to Councillor
Has
Armstrong?
anybody, yes, does anybody want to make a comment on that motion?
It's, for or against, Madam Mayor?
For.
For?
For?
Okay, yeah, I will speak. I think Councillor Fitzgerald had his hand up. If you're speaking for. Yeah, no, I support Councillor Armstrong's motion to go to Local Government New South Wales. I dare say with these motions that go to the conference, there could be 8 or 10 or more councils all put in similar motions, and they're all tagged together, which happens quite often. And I'm pretty sure that'll be the case this time. And I think it's a show of support for our fellow council areas, as I spoke earlier tonight, in regard when the community and the council and the Boundaries Commission all agree that they think they should demerge. I think they should be entitled to have that right. And it's called democracy. And giving your community a say is something that we haven't achieved quite yet, but I don't want to digress. So for that reason, I do support and thank Councillor Armstrong for his motion to go to Local Government New South Wales. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I'll speak against the motion, and only because of the universal nature of the motion. I'm happy to discuss and look at any potential demerger of councils anywhere in the state and taking the information on hand and make a decision one way or another. But a universal nature, I could be supporting a demerger of a council which was inappropriate for a number of different reasons. So the universal nature of the motion makes me vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Can I just ask a point of clarification, Councillor Armstrong?
Yes.
Is that worded correctly there, that you're only talking about the merger proposals that is recommended by the Local Government Boundaries Commission?
Yes, Councillor, there's nothing universal about it. It's only those that are supported by a commission established by the New South Wales government.
Thank you.
Question through you, Madam Mayor. Could we be advised of the nature and purpose of the Boundaries Commission?
For you, General Manager.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the Boundaries Commission was established to review a business case put forward by a council in relation to demerging, well, one of their functions is the function that we'll speak to in relation to this motion. It's a panel of 4 independents who review that proposal. They then make a recommendation to the Minister for Local Government for their consideration of the potential to demerge the councils that had been previously amalgamated.
Just, I was of the opinion the Boundaries Commission is a standing statutory body that makes recommendations on all local government boundaries. It only relates to demergers, doesn't it?
No, it does relate to all, but in relation to this, the subject matter, that's the function in relation to the motion before us. I'll take that question on notice and happy to bring further information. I'm not fully aware of the statutory function of that outside of the interest in the motion before us.
Any other councillors who wish to speak for or against? All right.
Councillor Stadmiller.
Councillor Stadmiller, your hand is up.
Madam Mayor, I'm just confused. I thought the sort of general conventions of speaking at a council meeting were 1 for, 1 against, 1 for, 1 against. So is that what we always adhere to, or are we often getting 2 against, 2 for in that sort of continuation? Can that be clarified, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the Code of Meeting Practice allows that any councillor, once 2 councillors have spoken for and 2 have spoken against, it doesn't necessarily have to be sequential. That's been the observation from the practice here, but it is not a convention per se. So all councillors could speak against the motion, that would have the floor. However, the convention is the actual Code of Meeting Practice dictates if there has been 2 speakers for and 2 speakers against, as earlier this evening, a councillor can put it to the meeting to say, can we put the motion to move on? Thank you.
Mayor, if I can just bring to Council's attention, please, and also for the benefit of Councillor Stadmiller, clause 10.22 of the Code of Meeting Practice adopted by Council, which states the councillor must not, without the consent of the council, speak more than once on a motion or an amendment for longer than 5 minutes at any time.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Stadmiller has a question.
Do you have a question, Councillor Stadmiller?
Yes, firstly, thank you to Councillor Armstrong. I was aware of that also, but I'm just confused. Are we better off just going into a committee of a whole when we know that there's going to be some debate on this, rather than go for, against, and then from what I can gather, it's open stated. I found the General Manager's comment that we can then go to a vote and a point of order can be called irrelevant when I was asking as to the continuation of debate, not how to sort of stifle debate and then have a point of order.
Councillor Stadmiller, through you, Madam Mayor, it's a well-known fact that a councillor can call to go into committee of a whole. It needs a seconder and it needs a majority vote of councillors for it to occur. And I haven't heard it tonight yet. Thank you.
No, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Stadmiller, we have had, as far as I can see, we've had 2 talking for this motion and 1 against. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, but Councillor Stadmiller has a question.
Councillor Stadmiller, do you have another question?
I couldn't be bothered on this one. I've asked several questions tonight. I'm not getting satisfactory answers. I can't see it improving, so I'm happy just for it to move on.
Thank you. All right. I think we will put the motion to the floor. All those in favour?
We have Councillor Ingram, Councillor
Flannery,
Councillor Dodd, Councillor Armstrong,
and against?
Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Mackie, Councillor Hewson. Missed anyone? Councillor
Stadmiller, are you voting for or against?
I'm for, thank you.
For?
So that's fine.
Right, so Councillor Ingram, Councillor Flannery, Councillor Dodd, Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Stadmiller voted for the motion. Please correct me if I've missed any. Councillor Fitzgerald, Councillor Rolls, Councillor Mackie and Councillor Hewson voted against. Passed.
5-4, so the motion is carried.
Just before we move on, I'd just like to thank councillors for that, and just given that the 2 voting delegates both just voted against that motion, I'll be hoping that you speak for it when it comes up at Local Government New South Wales Conference, as it is a resolution of council.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. Are there any other motions people would like to put forward? I will say, if you want to think about it, there are means by which they can be considered and they can be sent in with a letter from the Mayor and from the General Manager. Of course, that would not happen without a conversation with all the councillors.
I'd just like to check the clarity around that a submission from a council could be put in without a council resolution. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I think if you look from my reading.
If that's the case, could I put my name down to go to the conference, please?
Can I just point out that the applications for motions closed on 25th of September and our next meeting is on the 28th of September. So that means it couldn't be considered by the next council meeting.
So through the LG New South Wales 2022 annual conference motion submission guide at Port and Fine demonstrating evidence of council support for motion, the member submitting the motion must provide accompanying evidence of support for the motion. Such evidence takes the form of an attachment note or extract of the minutes of the council meeting, which is tonight.
Thank you.
At which the member council resolved of the submitted motion for the consideration by the conference. In the absence of a council meeting, the evidence should be a letter signed by both the Mayor and General Manager. However, as pointed clearly there, it would have to be the support of councillors collectively and wholesale that has to be support.
All right.
Madam Mayor, can I move that council moves into committee of the whole to discuss items 12.2, 12.3, 12.4 and 12.5. I take on board Councillor Stattmiller's point about the number of people speaking and everybody wanting to have an opportunity to speak. I think that if we can deal with these an item at a time in committee of the whole, then we'll probably get that opportunity to speak and hopefully reduce the confusion that the councillors have found.
Happy to second it, councillor.
All right. All those in favour? Carried. All right. We look first at 12.2.
I'll start the ball rolling, councillors. The draft policy as it sits there now is significantly flawed in that there is an explicit prohibition in 3.1 that is totally ignored and it appears as though it's offset by a monetary contribution. So if you do something that specifically you can't do, as long as you pay some money, you can get out of it. I think we need to consider that a little bit further when we look at the fraud policy, because that probably doesn't sit well with anyone. I believe that this situation can be changed rather simply, and I note that in the words, the situation of changing it rather simply is supported in the way that the staff have written the report, and that is simply replacing the word must with the word should. It is not implicit then. I do draw your attention to the report, in which case get back over onto bottom of page 40. Councillors should not obtain private benefit from the provision of equipment and facilities, but in actual fact the policy says council must not. So I think that unless we're proposing to remove the subsequent sections 3.2, 3.3, 3.4 and 9.2, then simply changing must to the word should will obviate that need.
I'll move that. I'll support Councillor Armstrong's recommendation.
If there's any, we don't, with this, because we're in committee, we're discussing it. I think if anyone else wants to discuss it, please. Otherwise, I'll move on. In regard to the audit aspect of this, I don't know whether the audit committee has seen this draft or not, but I do note that audit is set at 2 years. I think that that is ridiculous, given that a year after the end of a council, we'd be auditing potentially the councillors that are no longer councillors. I think that probably should be done on an annual basis, and I do note that in claims made under the policy will be included in council's audit program, which is an annual audit. However, this bit that goes on that says an audit undertaken at least every 2 years, I believe should be changed to an audit undertaken annually, at least annually, sorry.
Councillor Armstrong, could you just help me with the page?
That'd be on page 52.
Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I do apologise for that. If councillors are having difficulty finding it, it'll be clause 15.1 on page 52 of the draft policy.
So can I just be clear on that? Where it says at least every 2 years, you're considering it should be at least every year? Annually. So do we need that at least, or just to put undertaken annually?
Madam Mayor, if council is happy to remove at least and make that an audit undertaken annually, I'd certainly be happy with that.
And just for the benefit of all councillors, these four policies, draft policies. What you're discussing tonight with some of the amendments that Councillor Armstrong is talking to is about what policy will be put to the community for the 28 days exhibition, and if any submissions, it will be brought back. If no submissions, this will become the policy. Thank you.
They're the only issues that I've got to raise with in regard to the draft facilities policy.
Thank you, Councillor
I'll
Armstrong.
leave it
Councillor Dodd, you have questions?
Yes, I would, in the OLG template, and we now about childcare and claiming for childcare expenses, and we put in the front that carers expenses $1,000 per councillor, but we haven't included the two clauses that relate to the.
Could you just remind us of the page?
Oh, sorry,
This is
I'm
page
talking
40.
page 48.
Thank you.
So it's 5.37, 5.38, but there's two that are in the Office of Local Government that actually talk about childcare expenses, which aren't in here. And so we've got the amount in the front, but we haven't got the two clauses that relate to childcare. We've only got a clause that relates to caring for an adult person. The two clauses say if councillors who are the principal carer of a child or other elderly, disabled or sick immediate family member will be entitled to reimbursement of carers allowance up to a maximum of so much per annum for attendance at official business plus reasonable travel, and 540 is childcare expenses may be claimed for children up to and including the age of 16 years where the carer is not a relative. So those two clauses relate to the childcare expenses, the carers expenses, which we have on page 43, but the two clauses that actually talk about those have been left out of the document. So I propose that they be added in.
Councillors, for process, unless there is objection within the committee of the whole, we will add these in just as a matter of course. If there's fierce debate, we'll have to park them so that you will vote on whether they go in or out. But just for convention, so we can move through, we will put them in unless there's objection. But I'm in your hands in that regard.
Thank you. Look, I was just wanting clarification. There's under expenses, there's general travel expenses, actual cost, accommodation and meals, as per the New South Wales Crown's Employee Act. And then you go down to conferences and seminars, 3,500 per councillor as approved by council. So the 3,500, I assume that relates to the actual cost of the conference, if there's a cost, if any. It's not for reimbursement of wages or salaries or anything, is it? So if your actual cost is simply the accommodation and travel, there's no other, you can't claim accommodation expenses, travel expenses, and then an allowance.
Councillor, through you, Councillor Manning?
Yes, go ahead.
That's correct. What we've done is looked at. Can you not hear me? So, can you hear me now? Yeah, sorry. Sorry, Councillor Franny. Yeah. So what we did, we've looked at the last 12 months and looked at things in terms of the conference costs, accommodation costs for hotel, etc. So you can't claim additional. That's basically putting the cost up there for council to then consider. Thank you.
I was going to ask what the carers allowance was for and thought perhaps we didn't need that, but having heard Councillor Dodd, I have a clearer understanding of modern society.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just make a comment on that in relation to carers costs? That I must admit, I thought that we had a paragraph in there, but I'll have to look at relating that to 10.3 on page 50, where carer costs are mentioned, but just as a blank comment. So I'll have to try and integrate those recommendations into that paragraph.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I just clarification required. 10.2, 10.3 on pages 50. and also page 51, 10, 15, just ICT expenditure might include, am I wrong in saying something like having access to Wi-Fi? Might include that?
Madam Mayor, yeah, the General Manager, I discussed that recently. And so if you go to page, we put in there ICT expenses for councils of $500 per year. And we assume that might be if it's internet connection or such.
Yeah. And that's fine. That's what I would have assumed. But 10.15 has within 3 months of an expense being occurred. Sometimes bills come through, longer than quarterly. Is there any movement available in that if there's expenses? Bills come in late.
Probably should consider that. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I should consider how I might just change that wording if council's happy with that.
So on that point, can I have some clarification about how we provide evidence and proof of charging Wi-Fi to council or internet to council, or what are we talking about here? What do we get out $11,000 for? Please.
Sorry, I think the intention was obviously one would provide, say you got a Telstra account or Optus account, and it'll have the it'll have your data usage or your internet connection on that.
So people are actually considering charging Wi-Fi to council. Is that what I'm hearing?
And don't you pick it up when
I'm
you
in the
provide
wrong
it with your
world.
iPad and the council's paying for the iPad, which includes connectivity?
Yeah.
What additional connectivity do you need?
Thank you.
Clarification. My point was about the 3 months. Example, sorry to get a...
But I take your councillor's point that if you're using your iPad, then that is the internet connectivity that you're going to be used. That's the point that you made. Is that right?
Yes, I wouldn't have thought councillors should be able to just turn up and say, "Oh, I need the internet put on at my house. So here's a bill for $500." I mean, I think fair suck at the sab. If you're provided with an iPad, I can't see what additional connectivity you need.
Well, we're in your hands, councillors. These are some of the expenses that were put forward that have been in previous policies. If the consensus is to
I think we should remove that
it's
unless there's any objection.
not a purpose.
Just my understanding of those ICT expenses were, if in the case of Wi-Fi, is if you were at a hotel, for argument's sake, at a conference or something, a council function, and to get Wi-Fi was an extra $10 a night or $15 a night. That was my understanding of what that was to cover.
That's one of those things. And look, my experience where that ICT expense is the location of a councillor, because of the size of the files, they requested that a booster be put on. That was actually in excess of that expense, and so that went to council for consideration. But again, we're in your hands, councillors.
I'd prefer it to be moved unless there's, vote against it. I just think you do. I think if someone has to seriously have a booster put in, they bring that expense to council and council consider it on a case-by-case basis.
I should say that on my reading of that and listening, talking to the CFO and the General Manager, it would appear as though if a councillor was to spend $500 buying a new telephone to take constituent complaints, which every councillor takes on a telephone, then that would essentially be covered by the $500 under this policy.
Not every councillor, Councillor Armstrong, they haven't got their phone numbers there. You can't ring them.
For those councillors that do have the telephone number there, then perhaps point taken.
Just on that, as we're talking, I think we're in a technological society, and I just think covering our backs, leaving it sitting there. And if there's an issue, I'm more than confident that the General Manager, if there's any problems, would bring it to the full council. I think just cutting it out takes us out of a technological society.
I think it allows people to claim money they don't really need.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, through you, General Manager, just for the council's benefit, can I add the comment in there, or as approved by council resolution? Would that add Would that provide satisfaction?
I can see council being bogged down with $10 receipt tickets over Wi-Fi. I'd find it incomprehensible, actually. But anyway, I'd agree my thoughts with Councillor Flannery and just take it out. But anyway, it's up to council.
Question to the CFO of the GM. It would appear as though the purpose of this is to provide access to the World Wide Web for devices other than the iPad. Is that correct? The iPad does have the facility to set up a hotspot, which is a localized Wi-Fi transmitter, so you can actually repeat that back out through the iPad. If that facility was turned on in the management software, then councillors would actually be able to utilise the iPad as a Wi-Fi hotspot and obviate the need for supplemental connection to the internet. It's perhaps
Can I add to that?
but anyway.
General Manager, you make a good point. Actually, I connect to the hotspot on my phone, and obviously I'm already paying for my phone in terms of a connection. So that's a good point.
Councillors, we are in a committee of the whole, so is there, again, this is a draft to go out to the community. Do you have in your hands, I don't want to say take it out or leave it in.
I'd like to leave it in, but point out that 10.4, I think, covers the issues that have been raised.
Look, we'll just take out that line item at this point and move forward unless someone objects.
I think so.
To it.
Otherwise, if you're worried about a $10 Wi-Fi account going to a conference where the accommodation has been paid for, you probably shouldn't go to the conference.
So, are we finished with our discussion? 3 policies. Let's move on to the next policy.
The next policy, as part of the papers, is on page 60. It's the procurement policy. Obviously, the report precedes that. Councillor Stadmiller.
I've just realised after all the discussions, Madam Mayor, around iPads and the cost of it and hotspotting and so forth. Section B here says no change to Hilltops Council procurement policy relating to modern slavery. Now, at a local government level, is that anything that we should be including? And is it anything that we have control over? I just would hate to get into something here that we can't really control, including if I was to refer to the batteries in the very iPads we just finished speaking about and the precious metals that are mined to provide those iPads, and whether modern slavery is used for that or used in any of the vehicles or mobile phones that councillors use, including staff and councillors, whether we're going down a rabbit hole here and whether that needs to be included. And I'd like to know who included it, if that's all right.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do understand we've been directed to include it by the Office of Local Government. I'll pass to our CFO, who's been close to that policy.
Yeah, thanks, General Manager. Yeah, that's correct, Councillor Stadmiller. We've been directed by the Office of Local Government. So we're in the process with all contracts and tenders that are RFQs that are now issued. The clause within the Modern Slavery Act 2018 is being now included in that, and we've also contacting all our suppliers to have received confirmation. We are required to actually provide that information in this year's the 2022, I think it is, annual report. So that is the direction. I can send you a copy of the circular if you would like a copy, but it's crystal clear.
The Chinese don't require it.
Councillor Stadmiller.
I'd just like to thank the Director for the response and have to agree with Councillor Flannery there at the same time. Basically, what we're saying is it's a feel-good policy and circular provided by the state government. I feel that it's going to do little, and as much as I would be against modern slavery, bringing it into local government, I think is a waste of time because it's going to be untraceable through the parent companies and the subsidiaries and so forth. But if it all makes us all feel better, especially the state government, by all means, I'll support it.
Madam Mayor, just in regard to that, I do note that there is no reference to the statement of business ethics in the related legislation and policies. And following on from Councillor Stapmiller's comments, I note that on reading the statement of business ethics, which is posted on Council's brand new website, there is no mention of this modern slavery legislation in that as well. So I'd suggest that there needs to be a reference in the statement of business ethics in regards to the Modern Slavery Act, because it does set down our expectations from suppliers. And there needs to be a reference to the Hilltop statement of business ethics in the related legislation and policy section of this procurement policy.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. So, any more questions are there on this procurement policy? If not, let's move to page 73, and that's the draft fraud and corruption control policy. Anybody like to open discussion on this?
I've got a question in regard to some of this.
Councillor Ingram.
The draft fraud and corruption control policy, and item 5.4 on page 76, and just says about everyone being aware, and you're encouraged to support Council's commitment to preventing fraud and corruption through reporting suspicious behaviour in accordance with the Code of Conduct. And I'm just wondering if the Relevant Director could let me know if things such as hypotheticals that expenditure is listed in our reporting under the wrong category. For example, if it was for professional services for someone and it was listed under other, would that come into this policy as being reported incorrectly in our statements?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the reference, I believe, is in relation to what was in an annual report where a number was in an inappropriate category, and I would put it to say that it was just inappropriately put with no malice or otherwise. And it's been fully documented what those expenditures were for. If there was if there was some intent in that, well, of course, it would be reportable.
I'd just like to clarify, I didn't say there was intent. I asked, would it be something that needed for people to consider under this draft fraud and corruption control policy as a good citizen? All of us, I don't know. That's what the question was. There was no intent at all. If someone's feeling guilty, I can't help that. Sorry, answer.
Through you, Madam Mayor, General Manager, if I can just add, if and certainly a point that I've made with the staff around, we're actually reviewing the procurement policy. If one circumvents that by deliberately, or we ascertain it's brought to my attention, yes, I would then go and see the General Manager and we would report it.
Thank you. I'll just broaden my concerns, and it relates to not just that particular matter that might happen or might not, the reporting of the expenditure for anything, gravel resheeting, anything. It needs to be reported in the appropriate section. So it's a bigger picture.
Sure, certainly. And just Councillor Ingram, I rely on the accounts payable creditors clerk. I rely on my expenditure financial accountant, who does from time to time bring anything like that to my attention, and we ascertain whether it's why it's been done, or I'll go back to a manager to actually seek further information. If I thought that there was some undue intent, I'd certainly report it, and that's my obligation as a public officer as well.
Thank you, Director, and as the public officer, and I commend you for your work towards that end. It's been a long time coming. Thank you.
Just a question to the public officer. When the public officer is no longer, when the public officer is on leave, still the public officer, is there a deputy public officer? Is there someone else to take that, to carry out that role, or is that fall back to the general manager?
The protocol has been brought back to the general manager.
Thank you.
Any more discussion, questions? Well, we're moving on to page 80, it is.
Sorry,
Or
81, 82, I'm sorry.
80, 81, or 82. 82.
Is the policy.
The policy itself, the borrowing policy,
I have a question.
and once again, to the CFO.
Yes, CFO, yeah, sure. Just in regard to the requirements, the document says council must also apply to the Office of Local Government. This is in the context of seeking to take out a loan. Councils must also apply to the Office of Local Government completing a proposed loan borrowing return each year. Is that an application or simply an advice, given that Section 230 of the Act, Section 230 of Local Government Regulation, rather, General Managers are required to notify the Executive Director of the Office of Local Government, Department of Planning and Environment, of a borrowing under a loan contract within 7 days, but there's not actually any requirement to ask the Office of Local Government if you can borrow it. It would appear under the current borrowing order that it's pretty well open slather. We just have a comment in that regard, please.
I'll take that on notice, Councillor Armstrong. I'm not sure that it's open slather, but just remembering we're still borrowing with two things we apply to. One, we're borrowing on local Office of Local Government instructions, and two, we have to follow T Corp's rating listing. We can't go outside that either, otherwise, and if a financial institution actually changes its rating, they're very quickly to advise us accordingly. I think we had to do that with the AMP loan recently, AMP investment, which wasn't AAA rated. But I'm not sure. I'd have to take that on notice, I think. It precisely what I think I understand what you're precisely saying, but I'll need to clarify that.
I'm just wondering whether that needs to be an application or whether it's simply an advice, given that the Minister's order appears to be, I've used the term open slather, perhaps that's not the best term to use. No, I apologise if it's not the best term, but it appears to be rather unrestrained in that respect. As long as we borrow in Australian dollars in Australia, then that's about the only thing that the then Minister, I think it was made about 2011 or so.
And correct. Yeah. And you obviously received advice of that. I mean, that sits on our revenue policy and sits in our reports each month. Yeah.
Just to add to that, through you, Madam Mayor, the wording of that sentence potentially poorly is council must also apply to the other. It would seem to suggest to me completing a proposed loan borrowing return each year would satisfy the first arm, although it's poorly worded, but we will check that.
Rather than apply.
Any more questions, queries? Councillor Armstrong.
Just following on from the comment that T Corp can apply a penalty. That's not in Section 625 of the Act. Can you tell me where that where they're enabled to apply a penalty from?
Take that on notice as well, but certainly we've had an instance where T Corp were in contact with us there a few months ago about removing that investment. They do watch it quite closely, and we actually have meetings with T Corp, and certainly advised, I think, in our annual budget there were no proposed borrowings in the next calendar year, next financial year.
I'm just surprised that the T Corp would even get involved in that, given that T Corp is in actual fact a competitor to commercial commercial banks and institutions. So I'd very much like to receive that information if it could.
You're correct there, but that is the case. Yep.
Right. Any more questions? Discussion? Then
Move that we come out of committee.
yes, thank you.
Second.
I was about to say that. Move Councillor Ingram, Armstrong. Everybody in all in favour? Thank you.
Move that way.
Thank you. Alina, seconder. Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. So any change that was proposed during the committee of the whole that there wasn't an objection to becomes what we've documented as staff and we'll put on. Thank you.
All right. Those all in favour? No.
We have
Fitzgerald against Councillor
So,
Fitzgerald.
yeah.
Councillor Stadmiller, is your hand up? Or thank you.
and those against, Councillor Fitzgerald.
All right. Move to the next one, which is 12.3, draft Hilltops Council procurement policy. Do I have a mover?
Move that way.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram. And a seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? All right. Those in favour?
That is unanimous.
It is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. And moving to the next one, 12.4, it's a draft fraud and corruption. Thank you,
Fitzgerald.
Councillor Fitzgerald, and seconded Councillor Dodd. We've had a discussion. Any more? No. Those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you.
12.5.
Right.
81.
Yep. 81, draft borrowing policy. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Seconder, Councillor Fitzgerald. Any more comments? I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. And we have dealt with 12.9. So we, 12.6, pardon me.
Page 86.
Page 86. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Pardon me. Cash and investment report. 31st of July 2022.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller, and seconded
Fitzgerald.
Councillor Fitzgerald. All right. Any comments, queries, questions? All right, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Thank you. 12.7, outstanding rates and charges and sundry debtors report. We have these in front of us. So moved. Thanks, Councillor Stadmiller, and seconded Councillor Flannery.
Question.
Questions? Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
A question to the General Manager in regard to the general debtors that are in the 4 month to a year, 1 month, 1 year to 2 years, 2 years to 5 years, and overdue more than 5 years. Is there an opportunity for council to get a report as to the nature of these debts? It just seems that they don't seem to be diminishing very quickly whatsoever at all. And also, I congratulate the CFO and his staff on the chasing up of the outstanding debts. I think it's about time that council became aware of the nature of these debts. Clearly, we don't have the opportunity to know who owes the money. That would be a breach of council's privacy policy. But certainly the reason that it's owed, how long it's been owed for, and what the prospects of recovery are all entirely pertinent for council's management of those outstanding debts. I would also suggest the same thing needs to occur with the water usage charges for the same periods.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll take that obviously on notice. Would you be satisfied if it forms part of that report, so it's discussion and then information is contained within this report rather than a separate report?
Mr. General Manager, providing it doesn't breach any privacy issues, I'm happy enough. But if it's of a private nature, personal nature, then I'd suggest it probably should go into the closed section of the meeting. But I'll leave that entirely up to you as to make that determination.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I could just comment on that. So I've actually spending a fair bit of time in this area. I've actually just, for the 30 June accounts, which you'll see very shortly, assessed those debts I think that need to be written off, that they go back some years, and also the provision for doubtful debts as well. There are notices out there for letters on demand for other parties, and also there'll be some writs or statement of claims being issued in the local court where we just don't seem to get a response. Some of the things I've observed are people are reluctant to pay food inspections. I see, and this is in the past, so they're things we need to highlight and sort of jump on more quickly than we have been in the past. And you're probably aware that the sale of land's coming up in September, and so there's been a fair bit of feedback in that area. And we're also chasing, whilst there's no intention to remove any rates, because I believe they're all collectible, except we might have some troubles with, as with the sale of land, with change in title. Certain people didn't realise the title had changed. Need to provide legal solicitors advice on that. But in any event, so I'm trying to chase those debts down quite actively. And Anthony, General Manager, I should say, a meeting with some of the other local businesses that have got some rather high amounts outstanding that have been not looked at. One of the things I want to do with our rates is we need to obviously not just let things go for 5 years, but approach those more quickly than what we have been. So that's the strategy. But I have been through all these debts that are outstanding for so many years, and they'll be included in the annual accounts. I'll have a chat with the General Manager about how we present that information.
Thank you. Just for the sake of Council, could you refresh our collective memories as to the provision for doubtful debt?
Can't hear Councillor Armstrong.
Could that better, Councillor? Perhaps the CFO could just refresh our collective memories as to the amount that we've allowed in our budget for this year for the provision for doubtful debt.
I can't recall without going to my papers what the budget is, but at the moment I'm looking, if it's appropriate to mention that now, within the accounts. The General Manager's got a comment there, but I certainly could tell you the value that I've assessed at this stage. Is that okay? Yeah, so there's a total amount of around about 150,000. So it's not an insignificant amount of money, and some of these debts go back several years, quite a long time, even prior merger, which for some reason have just been left there. I just can't remember the split now without going to look at my computer, but I think it's about 100,000 doubtful and about 50,000 that I'm recommending for write-off that I just don't believe are collectible. And sometimes when you get to a point with $200 debts, we've already spent a fair bit of money with our outstanding collections actually trying to recover these debts.
Thank you. Look forward to the report.
Being in some cases, they're businesses that have closed up, like hotels, etc., around here, and other businesses that have all just closed up.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? If not, those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. And if we turn now to 12.8, 2212 development application stats for July 2022.
Question?
Yes,
I'll
Councillor
move
Armstrong.
it with a question.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong. Seconder, do we have? Thank you, Fitzgerald. Councillor Fitzgerald, pardon me. Councillor Armstrong, with
Sorry,
your
Madam
question.
Mayor. Question to the General Manager. Just in regard to the table on page 91, I do note that the figures are for July 22 and then year to date. I guess if they're as of the end of July and year to date, and the year to date is a financial year, then can we just get an explanation as to why they don't sort of tie up? But if they're a year to date is a calendar year, then I suppose that provides a response. But can I just get some clarification on that, please?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll pass to the Director of Planning.
Through you, Madam Chair. So what we have, Councillor Armstrong, is the month for July and the year to date in this financial year. As you would appreciate, there's a cyclical nature with development applications, and they tend to ramp up as we go into construction season and the like. So what we hope to do in future reports is to provide you a time series that shows you both that cyclical nature, but also the performance over time based on a historical average base. So we'll hopefully give you more insight as to the performance of this area.
And I'll just add through you, Madam Mayor, as it's stated, the Hilltops LGA for the month of July and calendar year to date is tabled below because we're only in August. We did do 218, but we've done it.
Thank you. I'm just wondering why we use a calendar year when we account for everything else in financial year.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I misspoke. I meant to say calendar.
That's understood. Look, it's just information. I think we're trying to get more informative, and that's the series of data. But if councillors don't believe that's,
I actually think it's misleading because we provide an annual report that's based upon a financial year.
Would it be useful to have reported? I'm not sure if we did these reporting in June with the whole year to date, the calendar year, the full preceding year.
Can we report the financials in on a calendar year?
So through you, Madam Mayor, what we intend to do is provide you a snapshot of the last historical year, and then as each month goes on, we give you the year before us, and so you can see that year's performance and that peaks and troughs that I think will give you that insight that you need.
So can we get the days that determination takes for those various classes of development type there as well? The average determination time.
I'll take that on notice.
Thank you. I think that'd be more useful, to be perfectly truthful, than showing us stuff that's occurred back at Christmas time.
I have a question before the director sits down. Just a point of a clarification to an inexperienced councillor. For example, under subdivisions, it's got 4 in July 22 for $28,000. How's that $28,000 determined?
I'll take that on notice.
Stadmiller.
Oh, pardon me, Councillor Stadmiller. I wasn't looking up at the screen. Yes.
That's all right, Madam Mayor. Just on page 94, underneath the bottom of the table for development applications, it says the following development applications involving a clause 4.6 variation to a development standard in council's local environment plans, e.g. minimum lot size for a rural dwelling, were determined under delegation in the July 2020 reporting period. It has a colon and then the word nil. I was under the impression that all clause 4.6 variation applications had to come before full council. So I find that paragraph redundant, or is council staff or are council staff, more to the point, able to have delegated authority to approve a clause 4.6 variation, and I've been mistaken for many years.
I'll take that on notice.
Councillor Stadmiller, perhaps I can assist you there. Council actually provided that authority this year, where I think where the variation was no greater than, no quote on this, but I think it was 10%. Sorry. So there's actually a delegation. If I call for the delegations register, the general manager might be able to provide the details of that delegation, but I shan't call for it now. But that's my understanding of the reason it's in there.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. You're correct in that, yeah, the delegation was provided. I can't remember what percentage it was, whether it was 10% or something like that. I think it was 10%. I'm aware of the register on the website. It just probably needs to be a little bit clearer if this is a public document of the actual resolution of council, to explain it for the layman out there who doesn't understand, because I've been a councillor for 10 years and it confused me. But as I said earlier, I can be easily confused. But if it did display what percentage can be done under delegation, that would be much clearer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stadmiller. If there's no more discussion, questions, I'll put it to those in favour. Unanimous. Thank you, councillors.
Councillors, I can't help myself. I've got no self-control at all. The Minister for Local Government, as I said, have an understanding of how merged councils are failing, has approved the demerger of Cootamundra Gundagai. So it would appear that our council voting against that didn't have any influence.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham. It's not business at the moment, so we will move on with
it. Will be, Madam Mayor.
But at the moment, thank you, Councillor Ingham.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. I wasn't quite sure what I heard coming out of Councillor Ingram's mouth. Did he say that CGRC has been approved for demerger? If you could just clarify.
That's correct, Councillor Stadmiller.
Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
All right, let's move on to 1210, 2214, fixing local roads grant submission, 2022-23. And I think we all got the revised report, and the recommendation is in front of you. Do I have a mover?
Move with a question.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Flannery. And a seconder?
I'll second with a couple of questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ingram. Councillor Flannery, if you'd like to open.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, the first question is just pretty simple. When did we first receive notification of this grant funding round? If we could please be advised.
Sorry, Councillor, through you, Madam Mayor, is Councillor Flannery asking when were you advised about this funding?
Correct. When did we first receive notification of the funding round was open?
Well, Councillor Flannery, I wasn't aware that we have to continue to say when the funding round is open, but if that's a request that has to be done going forward, I'm certainly happy to do that, because these are public documents.
Well, it notes that it closes on the 9th of September, and a table has been brought to council for expenditure of up to $3 million, where council is to choose where it expends money. I'd like to know when the first available opportunity was for us to determine this.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll take that on notice. However, I would like to point out this is merely a request so that we can apply for the funding. Until we get the funding, there is no money attached to this report. It is for councillors' consideration as to what we will put into the portal as an application, with the reasons why we selected those roads.
Okay, thank you, to the director. So I had some trouble with this report in the first place because I'm an insurance contractor, but anyway, it's been clarified a bit more now. And the 1.75 contribution makes a lot better sense in the second report, but I have some serious concerns in regard to what's been put in front of councillors. Given the numbers there for a couple of these roads, and then underneath the table, the two very next lines point out to you that what we all know, costs are going up anywhere between 6 and 30%. So I'm not a mathematical genius, but a quick run of the pen last night, I had a look at a couple of those projects, and we take Boyee Road, I'm not too sure how you pronounce it, and it's there for $2.812 million. Let's say we take the middle figure. So between 6 and 30, we come up with 18%. That's just working on, that's all we can do, work on averages. In the middle, 18% increase on top of these numbers. That would add another $506,000 to that project. You go down to the Estonia Road, 825,000. You put 18% on that, it's $148,500. So that would blow them projects out. The first one to $3.318 million, and the second one to $973,500, for a total of $4,292,250. So if council were to contemplate giving a tick to those two roads, given the blowout in cost, and that's been, I think, pretty generous, just saying at 18% from what I'm hearing, everything else there becomes a worry because they'll just drop off that list there. I just can't work out why we would be presented with these numbers and then openly below I'm saying it could be 6 to 30% on top of it. Why? If we go ahead and we would seek to have those two projects and it blows out by 18%, bad enough out to 30%, well, the other projects will be just what? Because there'll be no money. I'm really struggling with how this report has come to us in the first place, and then to come to us like this, and to have what could be let's use round figures, $4.3 million out of 5.2 on two roads. And this, another part to the question is, would Back Creek Road be eligible for this funding? And the second part to that question, Madam Mayor, through you, there was an announcement by Michael McCormick on social media with yourself for Back Creek Road. Could I find out just what section of Back Creek Road that was? That might cover the part that I'm talking about coming into town. I'm not sure where that funding was for. So first, Pauline, and it could be $4.3 million out of 5.2. So council staff thinks that's a fair go.
Through you, Madam Mayor. This report was finalised just at the same time we received the supplier letters, and we thought it prudent that we advise that these prices could change, and we can revise these as long as we decide on the roads, and we can decide and then put them forward for funding. This is a very late receipt from suppliers, and we wanted to ensure that councillors were informed of the matter.
Thank you for that. I've been aware for nearly 12 months now from suppliers that increase in costs and delays, and I find it that we just find out at the last moment, and this comes to us now, and I think what Councillor Flannery might have been alluding to, in 10 days or 12 days, we've got to have it in. I don't know, I'm only one councillor, but there's some round ball numbers of what could happen if we put those two figures in. They would nearly take up the entire grant if we were successful. And Back Creek Road, is it eligible?
Only non-regional and regional and state roads are not eligible.
What's Back Creek Road status?
It's a local road.
Thank you. So it is eligible.
Yes.
That was the question. Thank you. Madam Mayor, can you help with the funding that Michael McCormick announced that day for Back Creek Road when the photos were taken?
Off the top of my head, I cannot, but I can certainly
can staff
Find out.
verify where that money was that, I don't know where this deputy from, Michael McCormick anyway, announced the money and took the photographs out Back Creek Road. Oh, let's rattle the cage and how much money was it? Let's get right to the bottom of it.
I'm sorry, Councillor, I can't recall.
Take that on note.
Or take that on notice.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
When you're looking at the 75% and the contribution, I presume there is built in.
There is built-in contingencies, etc. So yes, these costs reflect that we have contingencies in those values.
And how much is that as a percentage?
I don't have that information right now with me. Each road is different depending on the risk of the potential blowout of costs. We assess each project at the risk level of the project and apply a contingency accordingly.
There is built in a contingency for every road.
Yeah, we would have to revisit these costs because of the letter we received from the supplier this week.
Thank you.
Just in regard to the top item there, Thornhill Street, and council is aware that there was some funding ready to go there once before and it was moved. But I know it's only for one block. Does the staff member who assessed that road just drive one block? Because I can assure you Thornhill Street is in dire need of repair for a lot more than one block.
All the roads that were presented to this on this list have been assessed by the works coordinators as well as the engineers and prioritised based on set criteria. First was does it meet the criteria of the funding, and then the road condition, user safety, maintaining access, the road use and maintenance costs, and the customer inquiries and complaints. And we do typically try and manage the budget by doing sections of road at a time.
The description of problem reads pavement at end of useful life, broken shoulder edges. I would ask the relevant staff respectfully to take a drive up Thornhill Street again. And I would suggest to you that it would be a lot more than just one block. I think one block in Thornhill Street would be an absolute embarrassment. Because you would go from what is the end of useful life to a brand new strip in the middle, then bang, you'd go straight back onto the old stuff that was falling apart. I just can't follow the logic, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, just
and
question of the General Manager. The Director may like to assist as well. Just in regard to, I do note there's a section over there about risk implications, and I don't see too much in there about the financial risks, because I have a significant concern about the financial risk associated with these projects. As Councillor Ingram has already advised, that an 18% increase in costs will consume a very large number of these works. If that was to be an 18% across the board, then we couldn't fund it. Every time we go into deficit, we're eating up our savings, and our savings are disappearing. There is significant financial risk associated with having one or two very large projects there, and that financial risk is that they'll go into deficit. We'll spend more than what we've got in the budget to finish them off, and as a result of that, someone else is going to miss out, or alternatively, we'll have to throw more money into ourselves. So I have grave concerns that there's been an adequate level of risk assessment undertaken in regards to the financial quantums associated with this and the impact that would have on council's financial position. I'm not doubting for 1 minute any of the other issues, but I don't believe that there's been an adequate financial risk assessment undertaken on it.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Flannery, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I can't comment. Most of these roads I'm aware of, and I would share the comments that they're at the end of their useful life. I could easily add Currawong Road and Kingsvale Road to it. Parts of Currawong Road are in dire need, and I think on a risk assessment basis, a danger to, if you get a laden truck and a vehicle coming cross paths in the wrong spot of the road, it's a dire situation. Boyo Road, I'm particularly aware of because I occasionally use it to go down to Dugong if I have to access a highway, and it's in a shocking state of repair, as is which is not on the which is on the original list. McMahon's Reef Road is also in shocking state, as are a number of these others. I guess my comment would be that if we can complete major sections of any of these roads and aggregate the use of machinery in the one spot, and they don't need to be gone back to for 10 or 20 years, it's a good expenditure of money. We obviously need to be aware of the likelihood of a blowout in costs, but rather than running around, I don't, unless we can particularly see the need to spend 40,000 on Schillers Road and 90,000 on Tubble Road out of this grant, I would think it's a far better use of that money to put it up or down to some of these other projects, and then we just use our consolidated revenue to do the necessary work on these roads, because the biggest cost is in demobilisation of plants. So whether we spend the budgeted amount on Boyo Road, Houstonia Road, Thornhill Street, and do another block, I would be happy to be advised by staff, but clearly when we've only got 9 days or 19 days to the close of this grant application, we don't have the opportunity for that. At the end of the day, if the roads get done and we have money available that we might have otherwise been allocating for these roads or hoping to allocate in the budget, we can then move on in future years. But my biggest disappointment is that, you know, this gets brought to us with 19 days notice. There's no opportunity. We get told it can be taken on notice. Well, you can't take something on notice when the grant comes. It just reinforces everything that I think we find frustrating, or certainly I find frustrating. I better not speak for other councillors, that councillors are meant to determine where capital expenditure goes, and we have no opportunity to do that in the scenario that's being presented to us. But to the limited extent that I think we should move any of these grant applications, it's a waste of money having machinery go and do a $40,000 grant application or a $90,000 grant application, or applying for that money for those, put it onto the other roads and do them properly if you're going to do it. If we had traffic counters and they were reported to us, which I think I've only been asking for 12 years, if they were reported to us on a frequent basis, we'd be able to make some more informed decisions.
Councillor Flannery touched on a pretty pertinent point there with road counters and use on some of these roads. Look on the use of some of the roads, and you had a Millvale Road, it'd walk at him because of the sheer amount of use that's over it, and it's in a disgrace. Tubble Road, a lot of use, but I agree that Schillers Road, I don't know what you're going to do for $40,000. You can't do much. I understand that. I agree with you. Shords Crossing, I know very well about that because I was the one I contacted several times that they couldn't even get past, use the road. It was absolutely terrible. So I have no problems with it being there. Some of the others that come off there, look, Bimba Road, there's any number of roads that meet the criteria to have money spent on them, but we haven't got the money, as Councillor Flannery pointed out. And yeah, getting a decent section done is one thing, but I'm not going to be too happy if we come back and 4.2 million, and that's at 18% out of 5.2 million. Goes there, but it's up to council to make a decision. We haven't got much time. We've got to do something. Someone suggest something.
Just a question to the director, if I could. With these works, if they were to proceed, would all of them be undertaken by council, or would they be all contracted out?
Well, firstly, if this work should proceed, the last time we did a funding grant, out of the list that was provided to the funding grant as a project, only 2 of the roads were accepted. So the first point is that it's not necessarily that all of these will be accepted. Some of the roads will be done by council staff where the resources are available, and some will be done by contractors. The intent is to try and do all of the work with staff. However, I will point out the amount of rain and the state of the roads that are currently there. We are focusing on making sure that we make the roads that are currently heavily impacted safe and also doing some maintenance patching on the sealed roads, because there is a lot of damage out there, and I'm not sure that we would have the resources depending on when the funding comes through. I would also like to add that the Fixing Country Roads round 5 has just come out. We were advised on Monday, so councillors, I'm advising you that there is a Fixing Country Roads funding stream coming out now, and we will certainly bring back a list for some consideration by council.
The Stronger Country Communities round 5, I think it might be.
Yeah, it's also out now.
It's just opened up. I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity to seek funds under that for some of these roadworks.
I know that has just come out as well. We would have to look at the criteria of the grant, Councillor Armstrong, through you, Madam Mayor, before we can comment on that.
Can I just get clarification? Are we only able to apply for $3 million?
Well, the $3 million in this program is driven by this 1.77 million that we've got from Road to Recovery. What we try and do is apply, because fixing local roads, the requirement there is that council provides or gets a source of funding to fit the 25%. So what we do is we say 25% of 1.77, what is the additional 75? And that's what fixes the total value of that. We first see what we can apply for, given the fact that we are limited by the 1.77. And you'll see that the total for the Road to Recovery that we're suggesting as a co-contribution comes to 1.754. And then we add the rest back to get the 75% from fixing local roads. So it's a co-contribution, but we're using grant funding money. We're not using council revenue money to apply for this grant.
Okay, any more questions? I just have a question, Director. When you say that the proposed roads, we might not get them all, what? So when you put in for the grant, do you actually put the most important first, sort of thing? Does that guarantee that that will be chosen, or is it a bit random?
Oh, it's not random. The funding bodies have their own way of prioritising the road. So you could put your most important road first, but they have a certain matrix that they apply to the road that you have provided the information on. And I'll give you an example. In the last round that we had Thornhill right at the bottom of, not Thornhill, sorry. We had Terence Gap Road right at the bottom of the list. And that was, yeah, if we got this whole lot, that would be great. And we included Terence Gap. We got out of that funding round, we got Cullinga Mines and Terence Gap, because they have their own formula that they apply and they select the roads based on your application. So there's no guarantee that the roads that we prioritise as we think is the most important will necessarily receive funding.
So this list on table 2, what are the chances of all of those being accepted?
By going by past experience, and I'm not saying that it is not the case, but by past experience, it's unlikely that we will get all of these roads.
Okay, so we're looking at a percentage of those roads.
Yeah, and I could not share at this point in time. That is the decision of the funding agent.
Through you, Madam Mayor, could we please be emailed a copy of the grant funding guidelines and basis? Councillors be sent that, so at least we can see what we're applying for.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, I will make sure that happens.
Righto. Thank you. So, what do we left with? What's the recommendation?
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, we can't hear.
No, you're right. You couldn't, but you can now. Receive, note the report and co-funded projects outlined in table 2 for 2022-23 be endorsed for formal grant application to the state government under the Fixing Local Roads program to a maximum of $1,770,000 $9.68 and co-contribution from federal government. Okay, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Six.
Councillor Mackie, Councillor Stadler, those against,
Those against?
Councillor Ingram, Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Flannery, were you a for?
I haven't voted, to be honest. I'm staying at this point.
Okay, so that's against.
Motion passed.
All right, in that case, the motion is passed. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 12.11, the works report, which is on page 178. All right. Yes. All right. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ingram, and second, Councillor Fitzgerald. Any questions? Councillor Ingram?
I have actually. Over on page, we turn to page 188. We'll start on it. There are some other things, but anyway, go to 188. And it's about the information requested from the LRCIP in round one. The balance of 2021, if you were get your mathematics going again and add up what was spent on Millvale Road, and it's split in two little areas, you come up with about $1.5 million, round figures. A bit over, 1.5 million. Millvale Road, questions. Millvale Road funding. There was $1.2 million. It's achieved out of a grant from Mr. McCormick. I believe it was that one when I asked for that money in a mayoral minute and was actually voted against by some councillors at the time. So that was $1.2 million. Other money for Millvale Road was in the vicinity of $900,000 that was achieved way back when Hilltops Council, Dirk Weimer was here at the time. So I'm just wondering about a breakdown that's got $1.5 million there for Millvale Road from LRCIP, and we only got 1.2. I do know the council had contribution of roughly $300,000. Is it coincidence that that 1.2 and 300 comes up to that 1.5, but yet it's listed under LRCIP? And what I'm asking is, it's listed there, LRCIP, add the funding up $1.5 million. I don't believe we got $1.5 million out of that fund. Does that include the $300,000 that council put in? Or where's these numbers come from? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is the funding that was reported against the LRCIP. We do have other funding like block grant funding and roads to recovery that we use when we are executing projects. This report was prepared just to say what is the LRCIP, and as my information stands, this is the numbers that were provided.
I suggest this needs to be talked to the public officer as something I mentioned earlier on, because I think the funding's been listed in the wrong place, but and the numbers just don't add up from the money that was handed out to council. So we can't say we received $1.2 million under LRCIP and then produce a report that says there's $1.5 million there. If it includes the $300,000 from council contribution, well, that's fine. But we need to have that set out so everyone understands fully how it works.
I will follow that up through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ingram.
Thank you, Director.
Just thank you, Madam Mayor. Just through you to the Director. I'll thank the Director for providing us with a list of the length of roads completed, the road maintenance grading completed. What opportunity would there be to produce one for the length of gravel resheeting undertaken, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll take that on notice and we'll have a look at if we can generate that the report.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Madam Mayor, I'll foreshadow a notice of motion.
Yes.
Requesting that be a regular report attached to the capital works report, be a regular report attached specifically to these works reports. So I'll foreshadow that.
Another question for the
Question, Madam Mayor. Under LRCIP 2, it's street lighting there of 805,000. I thought, could we be advised of the quantum of the grant we received? My memory was it was around $982,000 for the LRCIP that we put towards street lighting, but I my recollection could be incorrect. And has all their light replacement money, all the lights replacement been finalised?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there was a paper that went to council because Essential Energy came to us and said, you do need to replace all of these with LEDs. We then used LRCRP money. At the time, we had a letter from Essential Energy saying that it would be the 900,000. That's what we brought to council. When they redid the quote, they said, no, it's actually going to be 805. And to my knowledge, they're still busy replacing lights. I see them in the street often. So that works is undergoing, but it is the 805 now. So there was a reduction in that.
And do you know where they're up to as far as could we, for the next council meeting, be advised of where that street lighting program's up to, please? I'll
bring it to the next council meeting. Thank you, Councillor Flannery, through you, Madam Mayor.
Another.
Councillor Stamiller.
Can I just get a quick verbal update, Madam Mayor, from the relevant person as to what's going on with the Jugong Road? There's been some major erosion about 3/4 of the way towards Jugong, near the turn off, back up towards Morella and a number of other properties. It looks like the side of the road's been undermined, and if a car was to actually have their left tyre travel on the white line, they might be just travelling on the bitumen and not any substructure. So can I just get a quick update on what urgent work would be occurring on that, or what urgent work can occur, please?
Through all of the roads, through you, Madam Mayor, we are doing is prioritising. The teams are out there at the moment where they possibly can. They will, in terms of unsealed roads, place down rock or gravel if it's possible. And on sealed roads, we are doing some patching. So we are out and about right now, going and inspecting these roads and doing some urgent emergency repairs, which obviously also will lead on to, once we've done all of these repairs, we will have to relook at the budgets that we have, because these are unusual circumstances, and probably some road work will be delayed because of the very nature that we need to make these roads safe. So I don't have an exact date for you, Councillor Stadmiller, through you, Madam Mayor, on when Julian Road will be done, but certainly we are out and about doing emergency works to make sure that as much as possible we can make the road safe.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a question. There were road crews from Hilltops Council helping in the Cootamundra Shire recently. Could we be advised of what the nature of the work was and the urgency, given the road work that's required on our roads?
Director?
I will follow that up.
Okay.
I'll take it on notice.
And Councillor Stadmiller, I notice your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just can't stress more the urgency to have that particular road, the Jugong Road, looked at, and we need an explanation as to when it can be looked at. If it hasn't been looked at by 6:30 tonight, there's a good chance there could be a fatality, or the speed limit needs to be dropped down to 10 k's an hour. It's been completely undermined, and in the wet weather, we've got vehicles travelling down there, and someone could be killed. That's the gravity of the situation there. The road that Councillor Flannery is referring to, where Hilltops Council staff, when helped with, was when they took graders out there to assist the neighbouring council, and on the Olympic Highway, they slowed traffic down to 40 k's an hour because there was about a 10-metre long section, 3/4 the width of the entire road surface, that had just turned to mud. And they slowed it down from hundreds of metres away. It was that bad. this one at Jugyong isn't anywhere near as visible as that. It's just going to have a car have both its wheels go off into a huge part of the gutter and swerve into the side of the hill or go off the road. And I want council staff to know now that it's an urgent matter that needs attention, and the speed limit needs to be lowered from 100. I've driven it twice in the last 3 days, once with my mother, and it terrified me what we could have done if we were a metre to the left. So I'll be going out there tomorrow to inspect it myself and take some photos if no one else is willing to, and I'll send them to the GM. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we take note of the urgency. Councillor Stadman-Lone, we will send somebody out to assess the situation and address it as well as possible.
Thank you, Director.
I've got another little question, Madam Mayor, through you.
Yes, Councillor.
And I congratulate Councillor Stadman on bringing that to Council's notice. I probably would have done it soon as I drove over it. But anyway, on page 187, which follows 186, gravel reshooting revenue funded. And we gravel reshoot, back to Yong Road, gravel reshoot, reshoot. Then we get Medallion, establishment, tree removal, pavement, establishment, earthworks. Road, tree removal, earthworks, pavement. We come down the bottom, and then there's two there there's one from Wirral to Frogmore Road. It doesn't really say, well, I don't understand. Yes, but there's Frogmore Road again. It's rehab. Is that where's the funding come from for that? Just those two for a start. Is it coming out of the gravel reshooting, or is it where's the funding? Where did the funding come from for those two sections? Are they gravel reshooting? It doesn't say.
Well, from what I can see, that is gravel reshooting. No, I'm not sure, Councillor.
Then why produce a report where it's gravel reshooting, gravel reshoot, gravel reshooting, then all of a sudden it changes, and then it gets down there and it doesn't say gravel reshooting, but it's about $307,000, round figures. You can take it on notice. If that was actually gravel reshooting, or where the funding came from for those two projects at $128, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a question to Councillor Armstrong.
Yes.
You said you're going to foreshadow the motion. Are you requesting for an amendment to be put on the motion?
No, I'll wait for this motion to be put, and if it's lost, if the motion's lost, then I'll move a foreshadowed motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
We just wanted to make that clear. Mr. Right. All right, if there is no more discussion, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour, if you'd like, raise hands.
Not unanimous.
Okay.
Ingram, Fitzgerald, Flannery, Rolls, Wilson, Armstrong, Rod, Mackie, and Councillor
And Councillor.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Councillor.
so unanimous.
Yes, question which doesn't relate to the action plan very directly, but given it's part of works in progress, there was 3 grants noted, or 3 significant government grants noted as outstanding. Do we have any reason why they haven't been paid? And are they outstanding action items by council? Referring back to page 90, are these our outstanding action items for council in order to receive the grant money as detailed?
through you, Madam Mayor, it's not part of the action summary report. You're referring to the grants outstanding.
I'm wondering whether there are outstanding action items, and that's the reason we haven't received the grants.
Look, I'll have to take that on notice at this point. They are just outstanding grants. The nature of why they're outstanding, we'll have to take on notice and we'll bring that back to council.
Would that not form part of that report?
Those outstanding grants have been there for some time on the report, and that hasn't been raised with me as part of the action summary sheet. So I'll take it on notice, and we can put them back in if it is an action point that we need to do, other than it forming part of the debt recovery as part of the normal debt recovery. Thank you.
Yes, because I guess my point is they're not part of any normal debt recovery. We can't exactly go and tell the state government we're going to take them to court. Might be better if we get details on whether they're outstanding action items.
I was wondering whether we may be able to claim the interest that the state government provides for those accounts that aren't paid within the terms of trading terms established by the state government.
Maybe if we ask the CFO about that. CFO?
Yeah, sorry, I was laughing as well. There is one with Premier Cabinet that's been outstanding for a while that we're trying to get finalised, and that I've become aware of on the books. I might pass to the Director of Infrastructure. I think those two grants that Councillor Flannery is referring to are actually in relation to waste, as I recall, and have not been completed.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the Department of Premier and Cabinet, I cannot comment on that. It's a heritage planning stuff. The second one, which is the closure and establishment of transfer stations, Rees Flat, Millvale, Tubble and Rye Park. The funding that was received in 2018, I think it was far inadequate to actually achieve the closure of those tips. And the second one is the similar closure of the establishment of transfer stations for Brewery. I think in the order of those grants, we cannot do the work that has been presented. So in 2018, this was taken to council, and council said, yes, we agree with that. We will take that funding. We are in conversations with EPA saying to them, there is no way that this is adequate to do the work that is required. And we have requested a change in that grant description and scope to make it a study that we investigate how much money it's actually going to cost us to do these tips and close them. And we will come to the next council meeting with a further report around the tips and what we need to do going forward. But these two are stagnant purely because the grant isn't sufficient, and we are trying to renegotiate with the EPA to get some other form of using the money, but not saying that we're going to close those tips because it's not sufficient. And then the Keith Cullen Oval, we just need to acquit that and make sure that we can finalise it.
Yeah. Okay.
Madam Mayor, just one question.
Yep.
I did send the General Manager a quick text the other night, and I apologise for the lateness of that. In regard to the missing sign at Tresillian Park, has that been stolen?
Look, through you, Madam Mayor, I have passed that on. Do you have an answer for that, Director?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have had a spate recently of signs that are disappearing. We've had giveaway signs, etc. We've had skateboard signs in the creek. So there is some sort of element out there that is deciding to acquire our signs.
Can the Director tell me where it was located?
We haven't located the...
No, where was the actual sign mounted within Tresillian Park?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I would have to just check it out.
Can I please be advised of that location point, please?
Yep.
Councillor Armstrong, I'm not too sure. There was a resolution of council, but I don't think I've ever seen the sign anywhere.
The director's going to advise me where it was located, councillor.
Maybe like the Chinese tribute garden being completed and it wasn't. I don't know.
I'll wait for that direction.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I will follow up and then confirm whether the sign has or has not been placed. And if it did, then I will confirm the location. If it hasn't been placed, then obviously I cannot.
Yes. And as far as those missing signs, around town there have been quite a few, especially with this wet weather, I think, where signs have been actually rocked out of their base as well. And I was at the police the other day and they're aware of the problem as well. Thank you. So, let's put it to the floor. Those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And if we turn to correspondence, 1213. Thank you, Councillor Ingram and Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? No, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. The Hilltops Local Traffic Advisory Committee meeting minutes.
So moved with a question.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller, and seconded, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Stadmiller.
Madam Mayor, I've been contacted again regarding the lack of disabled parkings at the Kruger Health and Wellness Centre. Could that be put on the agenda for the Local Traffic Advisory Committee, or that be asked of the chairperson that it be put on the agenda, that be looked at again?
I'm sure it can. I also have just a small question, and that's about the young preschool kindergarten zoning. The report on page 201 says that if the preschool so wishes, it can lodge their request with Transport New South Wales. Will the preschool be informed of that they can do so by the Traffic Committee? On page 201 it is. It's just a 40-kilometre
Bottom of the
speed
page,
zone.
Councillor
Bottom of the
Fitzgerald.
page.
I'll see they're advised of that, but as you see that speed zones are determined by Traffic New South Wales, we're able to advise that they make the final decision.
Yes, I understand that, but I would appreciate if they were just advised that they could go that way.
I'll see that happens.
Thank you.
One more question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Stephen.
I'm a little bit unfamiliar, but I think it's Young Public School that's closest to the Young Hospital, is it?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. The people there who do a great job keeping the children safe there at that crossing, they had a large tree there for a number of years and that was cut down. I'm just wondering if council can do anything there to provide a shelter for them to get under and escape the elements in summer of 40 degrees and the 5-degree temperatures they probably experienced this morning, making sure that the children are safe getting across the main road there.
I'm not sure under whose remit that would come.
Was the tree in the grounds of the school or on the street?
It was on public land, so I'm guessing that it may have been cut down due to a lack of safety. I believe it was a large gum tree and provided a good amount of shade, but they since have no shade there now, or ability to get away from the elements. Maybe a small shelter would be advisable for council at a low cost, or a repurposing of a shelter. There's one at the bottom of Scott Street in the council yard in Harden that could be taken over to Young.
I don't think that's part of the traffic committee's remit to provide shelters, but I'm sure someone will look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor
I've
Sundry,
requested twice previously that the traffic committee will look at a sign indicating a turn off to Boorowa to Young on the Boorowa side of the Cusacks Road intersection. Could that be followed up, please? The number of times I've had near misses there increases.
Okay. And as the final one, Councillor Fitzgerald, I think I was in touch with you before about the signage outside the Services Club.
The signage outside the Services Club is currently under consideration by staff to see whether they can do something for that.
Thank you very much. If there are no more queries, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. All right, 12:15, 22:19, committee reports.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Second, Councillor Hewson. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. The next one, notice of motion, and that's electronic vehicle charging stations, and council, it's been raised by Councillor Piper, but I believe Councillor Mackie will speak for it.
I have a
recommendation.
Question in regard to the code of meeting practice. In regard to, because I note that the clause 10.9 requires a source of funds to be stated where the investigation would involve staff time, and my understanding is that council charges staff time back to itself. It recovers an internal cost against its budget for staff time.
Councillor Armstrong, the actual recommendation is at no cost to council.
I believe. Oh, look, I read that there, but I see that. Sorry, I believe that relates to the cost of the actual infrastructure, not the background work to get it to where it may be there. There would be considerable time that the council staff will need to invest in discussions, correspondence, telephone calls, emails, potentially designs.
There will be a cost to council, won't it?
Well, that's my concern. My feeling is that perhaps the chair should exercise the rights conferred under clause 10.4b to allow Councillor Piper an opportunity to clarify this. I realise that another councillor can move the motion, but it may actually be contrary to 10.9.
I'll pass to the CFO.
If I can just provide some information to Councillor Armstrong. I've had recent discussion with the General Manager. One of the targets we have in the last quarter of this calendar year is to review our costings across projects, but in particular, the charging one costs back to projects at all levels and to the various funds, because I've got a view of recent reviews that they could be more accurate than what it currently is. So some of the funds we might not be charging, so we're intending to hold some workshops with staff in the October-November period around procurement and charging to try and actually improve that focus.
I thank the CEO for his comments, but it's perhaps he could comment on the capitalisation of establishment costs and investigation costs in terms of capital works. Has that been a practice for council?
Well, they should be charged with the project, and we've tried to highlight that whenever we're doing any reviews around grants at a financial level.
I thank the CFO for that. Madam Chair, I'll call a point of order on 10.9.
Yes. So what if we defer?
Do we have a mover and seconder?
No, we haven't.
Not at this
Sorry.
point.
Do we need a mover and
Well,
seconder for this? Or
I want to give
put
Councillor
that
Piper an opportunity. I don't want to see this go down the toilet. So I want
No.
to give him an opportunity. But I think if we can't accept it in the way that it is now,
no, I
you as the
understand that.
chair can exercise your rights under 10.4B or under a point of order raised under 10.9, it's going to have to be deferred and the general manager is going to come back with a report.
Okay. Well,
I'd like to
I
move an
think my
amendment.
preference is for 10.4, where the chairperson may defer consideration of the motion until the next meeting of council. Are you happy with that?
I'm happy either way, Madam
All right,
Chair.
happy
It's
either
you
way.
that needs to be happy,
All
not me.
All right, that's my decision. I'm learning in the chair, aren't I?
Councillor,
No, you're not
Has a
sometimes.
Yes, Councillor Stamiller.
Madam Mayor, this could simply be resolved by you taking ownership of it. You're already being remunerated and contacting a far more progressive council when it comes to us in EV charging history, such as Yass Valley Council. And that would prevent any money being put towards this or any money spent or incidentals by council staff, by you taking control of this and we altering the motion to say the Mayor investigate the possibility of placing 2 charging units, one in Harden and one in Bora, at no cost to council as soon as possible, while having discussions with the counterpart in Yass. End of story. Being led down the garden path.
Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion, Councillor Stadmiller, but I think I will go with deferring the consideration of the motion until the next meeting of council. Thank you.
He put it up for a reason.
The next is confidential matters, where exclusion of the press and public. So can I have someone to move that we move into, thank you, Councillor Ingram, and seconded by Councillor Dodd.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in confidential matters, 15.2, 22/22 RFQ 622 of 2022, supply and disposal of 5 3-axle dog trailers. 15.3-2223 RFT 623 of 2022, supply and disposal of 4 gravel trucks. 15.4-22/24 tender RFT 624 of 2022, supply and delivery of 2 water trucks, were all moved as deferred to the next meeting. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. And thank you, councillors, for the meeting tonight. I declare the meeting closed at 7:36 p.m.